Check. Hi, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much for the confirmation. So, hi, everyone. Welcome to the Open Octofinals of NUDC 2021. Congratulations for all of the team to making it this far. So, without any further ado, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Randy. I'm going to be chairing this round. Along with me are Randy and Shagung. Probably you would like to introduce yourself and your preferred gender pronouns, starting from Randy.
Hi everyone, my name is Randy Tanaka. My preferred gender pronouns is he or him. I'm from IBITNB. I'm so sorry that I will not be able to turn on my camera due to some connection issue right here. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Next, Shagung.
Yes, hi, I'm Shagung from UGM. Thanks.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much for the introduction. Now I would like to do the roll call for all of the 4 teams. Firstly, do we have Universitas Airlangga?
Hi. Yeah, we are here.
Okay, cool. And complete, yeah?
Yeah, complete.
Parahyangan, are you here and complete?
Here and complete.
Cool. In CG, we have Trisakti. Are you here and complete?
Yes, we're here, complete.
Okay, cool. Hasanuddin, are you here and complete?
Here and complete.
Cool. Since everyone is here, we're just gonna start the debate. But before that, there are 4 announcements that I would like to make. Number 1, I would like to remind you about the POI policy of NUDC 2021. All of the debaters are highly encouraged to give and also to offer and also to accept 1 or at least 2 POI because POI might affect the outcome and also the result of the debate, especially in the close call. Number 2, have your own stopwatch. I'm gonna try to remind everyone and put a timestamp in the chat box, but in case I forgot, please do refer in your stopwatch. Number 3, if you have any preferred gender pronoun, please indicate it before the debate so that we can refer you as such during the debate. And last but not least, we understand that all of the pressure, institutional pressure during the octofinal, make sure the debate to be as equitable as possible, as subtle as possible. Yeah, we can still make an equitable debate and also a high quality debate at the same time, okay? So without any further ado, under the motion, this House believes that it is in the interest of religion to significantly integrate faith and science. I would like to welcome the Prime Minister to open the case of opening government here.
It's my first audible. Oke, observer ada yang belum.
Okay, for the observers, please.
Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
POI through chat, but I will offer anyway. Wait a second. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. We believe that the religion that exists in status quo currently is giving a lot of doctrines inside of it, right? That you should do practice A, teaching B, and so on and so forth. But the main problem with the current religion that exists in status quo is that they do not have any interest to prove the main reason why they are doing these practices in the end of the day. The main reason why we found this problematic is exactly when people started to question the validity of this kind of religion in the end of the day, the validity of the practice that you give towards your followers, the rationales behind this in the end of the day. It also resulted into how religion currently in status quo seems so detached towards the science that basically growing inside of the society and how the glorifications of science exist in the society. We think that in the result of this, you see a lot of cause inside of it. One of the cause of it is exactly you are losing your believer in the end of the day. This is exactly why opening government believes that this is within the interest of religion to significantly integrate faith and also science exactly to pursue having more believer in the end of the day, right? We think that this debate happened in the point of view of third parties that going to proving whether this is the interest of religion. So the main burden of proof in this debate is that to explain what is basically the interest of the religion, and second of all, why it going to significantly, it going to significantly bring more harm than good when you are doing certain mechanisms in the end of this, right? Before moving on my cases, definitions on what we are going to do, right? What do we mean by significantly integrate is that it means that we are going to giving logical explanations toward the practices. It might goes with khotbah, for example, or any educations form of this religion in the end of the day, right? For examples, when you make people stay away from zina, you are going to explain the main reason why you should not go that in the medical explanations or reasons, or even reasoning inside of the sciences in the end of the day. Or when you make people do fasting, for example, you are going to give the benefit in the medical terms why you should doing fasting in the end of the day. But it doesn't necessarily mean that in our side of the house this religion would going to change their belief or and so on and so forth, exactly because we are not going to changing the practices in itself. We are going to only giving the reasons towards the practice that we are going to give in the end of the day, right? But before moving on my cases from CO.
Okay, so do you think the existence of God can be integrated with science, and can you explain how God exists and how they work scientifically?
Okay. We think that when we are going to explain the existence of God, we are also going to create, explanations in regards of why certain things is basically exist, right? That never been also could be proven by the science in the end of the day, right? We think that we are going to directly giving evidence in regards of this. We think that this is okay in the end of the day, right? So let's moving on my argumentations in regards of basically what is the main interest of religion in the end of the day, right? We think that the main interest of this religion is exactly to maintaining their survivability for the next generations and so on and so forth, right? But the main reason why in status quo this is not going to be happening is exactly because currently people is basically growing in the virtue of advancement of technology. We think that in this kind of context create a bias from people that they are creating rationality based on the sciences in the end of the day. This is the main reason why people seem people that basically religious as not as irrational people, exactly because they believe their basis rationals in the basis of science in the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen. This is also the main reason why they are not believing in religion, exactly because the current context of religion is always so detached toward these kind of of sciences in the end of the day, right? So even in the current conditions, people that basically believing you at the very first place, they are started to losing their faith exactly because the glorification of science, and you could not even cope up with this kind of advancement in the end of the day. People started to question their validity of belief, and this is also the main reason why you could see that a lot of millennials or even peoples that basically glorifying science is always so detached from the religion in the end of the day. We think that we could not let this happen because maybe in the next generation we are also going to significantly losing our believer in the end of the day, right? So why this believer is very important? This is very important exactly because the power of religion, whether you are going to survive, whether you are going to develop and so on and so forth, is always in the basis of believer in the end of the day. Exactly, they are the one who's going to contribute towards the spreading of your teachings, for examples, or even giving you contribution in terms of money. You are going to give a lot of people help from this kind of money and so on and so forth, right? This is the main reason why we think that this is within the interest of religion to making to integrating with the current context of this science growing, exactly to maintain the believer that they got in the end of the day, right? This is the main reason why we're proud to propose. But second argumentations in regards of practicals, why then we believe that in our side of the house believer we're going to come in the end of the day, right? We think that the main reason why people do not want to believe in religion is not necessarily because they hate the existence of God. Some of them believe that God is exists, but the main reason why they could not believe in certain religion is exactly because your religion seems so irrational. You cannot give any reasonings in the end of the day. We think that when you are significantly integrating your practices and also sciences, regardless this kind of thought, they are going to default it on you exactly because they found a functions of this kind of religion in the end of the day. You give them rationals, you give them benefit on why you should join this kind of religions in the end of the day. They feel that they are not going to blindly doing anything, means that they are having a clear devotions, the main reason why they are devoted towards you in the end of the day, right? We think that this is basically good. Exactly, you are going to gather more people instead of this religion, but second of all, you are also going to make a long-term believer in the end of the day. The main reason why they are most likely going to be a long-term believer is exactly because the idea of science is developing. So when you are integrating yourself with sciences, there will always be an added explanations, added layers of explanations of your existence of religion in the end of the day, right? We think that as the result of this, you are going to be an unquestioned validity of religion in the end of the day, exactly because people having multiple reasons on why they should believe in you in the end of the day, right? We think that this is also the burden of opposition to prove why on their side of the house they are going to gather more followers, as we see that this is the main interest of the religion in the end of the day. But we think that in terms of old followers, you are also not going to losing them exactly because you give them reasons why they should believe in you. This is exactly why our practicals is working, right? But let's see, on the base scenario of opposition, they are going to say that there is still going to people who is believing you. But here's the thing, we are not debating towards them. For example, people who are going to highly believe in you, who are going to be stay in both sides of the house. But we are talking about people who is always questions from the rationals in the end of the day, people who is always following the context in the end of the day. On their side of the house, this believer, even when there is access, the number is significantly low, or even by the time they are going to gone. This is exactly what this is the main reason of it is exactly the glorifications of science is basically bigger. This is the main reason why we're proud to propose. Thank you.
Thank you for the Prime Minister for the speech. Now to open the case of team opening opposition, I would like to welcome the leader of opposition here.
Is my voice clear?
Yes, audible.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me. For POI, please do it through the chat, and I will take and I will try to take from closing. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. The stance of the opening opposition is very clear that we believe it is not the interest of the religion to significantly integrate faith and science, right? So we want to maintain the identity that religion have, in which it actually focuses only the concept of faith and how we are not actually going to touch, for example, looking for the rationality of our religion, right? We are only going to focus, for example, on the teachings that is written on the Bible or like on the Tripitaka and like the main values of this kind of religion, right? But before continuing to my case to explaining why inherently faith and science, for example, they cannot be integrated, and second to why persisting identity is going to be much better to the religion's interest at the end of the day, engaging, I will rebut the points made by the opening government, right? So basically, the explanations that they have given to us is like, for example, to say that they are going to use logical explanation to explain their kind of teachings, right? They give the example of how they are going, for example, to give the medical explanation why you should be fasting, right? Exactly, we're going to point out this is why religion is going to lose their identity under the opening government, right? Because, for example, the moment you attract people by using this kind of logical explanation, what they are going to do is, for example, they are going to indulge because of this kind of rationality, right? Because it is based on science. They are not going, for example, to take interest in actually learning the teachings that the religion actually have, right? Because, for example, people are going to do fasting because they believe that it's healthy for them, for example. This is not the thing that religion is looking for, right? And you can just consult, for example, to a doctor regarding your diet for this, not go to a religion. But second, exactly the moment that the OG portrays how the current world is like very scary, very depressing, and very much revolve around the advancement of technology, we think religions have the important advantage where they actually provide to you this spiritual comfort, right? Because, for example, under this advancement of technology and everyone being productive, we find this very scary concept about how people are afraid of death, because currently we are facing the pandemic of COVID-19, about how the world is ending and very depressing, right? Where people dying left and right and economic crisis is happening. We think the world of rationality inherently is like very scary, right? But as religion becomes very exclusive, because now they are present and giving to you this faith that, for example, there's this abstract concept about how there's a divine being that is watching over you, that you can make the world a better place the moment you do good deeds for other people, right? This is exactly the thing that we champion under the opening opposition. continuing on, explaining why, inherently, for example, why faith and science cannot be integrated. Firstly, we are going to talk about the difference in characteristic. So firstly, we think the characteristic of science is that it is very rational, right? So for example, believing that there is a reason for everything and everything should be done, for example, through experiment, finding hard proof, etc. In comparison, when you move, the moment you see the character of faith, it is something that cannot be rationalized, right? This means that it is very much a more abstract idea. For example, the moment I choose to go with my faith, it is because I find like this certain feeling of comfort, right? Something that you cannot measure because, for example, I feel secure. The moment I know that I'm going to do good deeds, I'm going to, for example, have the chance to enter heaven, for example, or the moment when I do bad things to people, there is like this sense of repercussions, right? Meaning I believe that bad people will be punished in their afterlife at the end of the day, these kind of considerations. So the impact, the moment that the the government bench is trying to integrate the faith and science, it is going to confuse the teaching of the religion, right? Because, for example, from these two contrasting identities, what it's going to do to the religion is exactly confuse the teachings, for example, because you have this contrasting value, you do not have a certain identity, for example, that you champion. And this is very much confusing, for example, to your followers, right? Because they don't know which value or which kind of like perspective of thinking that they should hold on to, right? We think this is at the end of the day going to disperse the interest of our followers, right? Because you don't have, like, for example, a very contrasting identity, and you are basically going back and forth with the way you are teaching your values to your followers. But second, we think inherently why it's very problematic is because also science reject the idea of religion, right? This is why, for example, you have like secular studies that portray religions as something that is very irrational, something that cannot help to explain or actually advance the world at the end of the day. We are talking about skeptics, very extreme people under the side of the house, right? And we think that these are the kind of demography that religion never tries to touch anyway, because these are talking about very extremely rational people that already believe that religion is not suited for them. We think religion is never going to these kind of people anyway, right? Because we think the moment that these people actually feel that religion is a conspiracy theory, this is still the matter of their personal choice, right? This is not going to matter the moment you try to integrate science and religion. For example, even if they decided to opt into this religion, they are only going to focus very much on trying to disprove, for example, our inherent value of religion, right? Because, for example, they are going to contest the teaching that is being written in the Bible because they believe it is to be irrational that we have actually a God that is present, or the concept of like hell and heaven. They believe that this kind of world is only like the construction of society, for example. This kind of critics is going to exist under the government bench, and we think that this is going to be very bad because now you are going to harm, for example, your inherent religious belief, right? That there is God, that, for example, there is this very abstract concept about how afterlife, sins, and karma can be measured at the end of the day. So why then persisting our identity as a religion that keeps upon faith is going to be good? Firstly, I'm going to explain why people actually believe in religion, right? This is because they are exactly looking for empowerment to an escape of the world that is very much fixated upon science, right? Although there is, for example, security that comes from science the moment that you know that you are being very rational and able to prove being able to prove, for example, that, oh, I understand now why humans were actually living in this society, how humans actually came to being and built civilization and those kinds of securities, right? But science is also very scary, right? Because the moment, for example, you know that in your physical being you have like this certain illness and you are going to die in like the next 5 years because of this of cancer, for example, you find this like very scary feeling, right? Which is exactly some people, this is why in extreme cases, people resort to religion, right? Because, for example, in the concept of you physically being dying and those kind of things, religion provide you this security, right? Because, for example, even if this is the last moments of your life, you can still have like this kind of fulfillment from knowing that and looking back to the things that you have done, and, for example, thinking of the way of spending the last 5 years of your life to actually make your life better, right? For example, this is why people actually repent on their sins. This is why people actually go to praying, right? It is not because of like scientific reasons. It is because they find this sort of comfort from religion and the appeal that it touches the invisible, something that science cannot touch, the afterlife, sins, greater being. At the end, this is why followers under this kind of religion is going to be going to be good, because the type of people we're talking about is that they are not looking for something rational that the world can explain by proof and hard data. It is exactly this kind of feeling, this kind of fulfillment from the community that the OO finally proves under our house, right? Yeah, very proud to oppose.
Thank you very much for the leader of opposition for the speech. Now I would like to welcome the Deputy Prime Minister to extend the case of team opening government here.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Oh, wait. I'm not connected with my own. Yeah, check. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Yeah, POI through chat. I think that's all. Yeah, gender preferred pronouns is he or her. I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panels, religions is always going to be a self-interest. If opening opposition trying to contest to you that in our side of the house, people will only be pragmatic, I think that in both sides of the house, people pursue religions because of their pragmatic. In their side of the house, people want to do good deeds because they want to be in heaven. In our side of the house, the comparison is that people want to do good deeds because they can actually get a benefit that is created by science, for example, and therefore they also get a certain pahala, for example, that can put them into this particular heaven for them, for example. That's the thing. I think that this is very much important, so that opening opposition and closing opposition cannot come up with the debate and saying that, oh, it's going to be saturated meaning in our side of the house, for example. Because no, I think that religion is always going to be about the idea of self-interest. So I'm going to talk about two things in my speech, and all rebuttals will be intertwined. First of all, why then integrating faith and science is visible, and and second of all, why then the identity of this kind of teaching, why then this kind of identity religion will not even be bad at the end of the day, right? First of all, why then integrating faith and science is visible at the end of the day? Opening opposition main contest is that the idea of science is very much rational. Therefore, religion cannot keep up, such as the idea of God, the idea of afterlife, and whatnot, right? We think that in our motion today is actually significantly integrated. It means that not all things we can say that not all things maybe cannot explain by this particular science, but that's perfectly fine. Even though if you really want to integrate science, and science is upon the idea of the questions of existence of God, you can actually saying upon the idea of how certain things exist, how these particular things exist to begin with, right? If you're talking about afterlife, it's okay if you cannot actually explain to that. Why then it's actually still going to be very much feasible? Because a lot of religions teachings and preachings can actually rationalized by science. For example, the end of the life, for example, you can also talk by the idea of climate change that is very much contextual to your followers, that our earth is actually currently damaging and the end of life is actually near. Or for example, you see, you have to be kind to others, you have to giving to others, so that you can actually intertwine with the theory of self-interest. You can say that, oh, you are going to be helped in the other things that is very much in the other days, such as your benefit also. What is the comparison in their side of the house? In their side of the house, you don't explain the abstract thingy, such as the existence of God, and such as the afterlife, and you don't also explain the idea of teachings that you expect them to do, such as the practical teachings, such as salat, for example, fasting, or maybe taking care of your earth or whatever it is, and every religion that actually teaches. What is the harm in the side of the house? You are going to be even twice being perceived as something that is blindly following your teachings, for example, from your religion, and also you're going to be easily nullified by people who don't believe you, and also the followers that is currently in a gray area that is questioning your religion, which whether I am rational to do this or not. It's going to be easily swayed by those kind of things, because in their side of the house, there are clearly zero explanations and not intertwining science and teachings and science and also this particular religious teachings at the end of the day. We think that the harm is double in our side of the house. Yes, we understand maybe the question upon the idea of afterlife is going to be exist, but at least the one is very much tangible in our current world is going to be well explained in our side of the house, such as what I said earlier. But second of all, upon the idea of identity of religion, right? Look, opening upon the idea of opening opposition believe that a confusion of teachings, you're going to be have this kind of confusion of teaching because we are going to have this particular contesting science at the end of the day. Well, in your words, in current status quo, the theory that tries to nullify you will always going to be even exist at the end of the day. It's not going to be suddenly disappear right in your side of the house when your religion is actually being disconnected with this kind of science at the end of the day. In your side of the house, it's going to be easily for those kind of theory to nullify you at the end of the day. What is the comparison? At the very least, we have this kind of, in our side of the house, it's going to be easier because we actually have this kind of backup theory that is actually going to support us. For example, the practicals that we are trying to teach, for example, it's going to be more likely to be supported by this particular science theory such as health, for example, or maybe environment theory and whatever it is, right? We think that sure, tension may be active, but in our side of the house, at least we have this kind of theory that is support our teachings at the end of the day. Not like in your side of the house moment you don't have any to actually defend your religion at the end of the day. And the purity of religion is still going to be even exist in our side of the house because you still impose people to do something or not to do something, right? You just intertwine it with the science, you just intertwine it with the why you do something and not to do something in this particular thing. So I don't think that the purity of religion will be even bad in our side of the house, right? But even when you are contesting in the worst scenario in our side of the house that religion is changing, for example, we say that it's perfectly fine, right? Because why? Because notice that religion has the precedence of changing. For example, in Islam, in the very first thing, you are actually going to be expected salat 100 times a day. But you're actually by day, and also the progress of religion, you're only expected to salat actually 5 times a day because exactly science told you that a human body is not even possible to do 100 times salat a day. That's exactly why it's perfectly fine. Even in worst case scenario, with opening opposition maybe and also closing opposition, we are perfectly fine with that. But lastly, upon the idea of closure towards the flower, but before this, I expect some BOI from opening or closing.
Opening.
Yeah.
So if your idea is like to bring like advancement and good deeds to the world, and for example, like tackling climate change and those kind of disasters, why can't you just do that through like normal partyings or like contributing to field of science in itself?
No, we are not talking about sometimes someone who actually don't believe in science in itself. We are talking about the followers, for example. The moment your imam, for example, asks you to actually to take care to take care of the world, or maybe to take care of other people, those kind of people will not even question. Will not even question the moment you have a certain clarity that you are doing this because the existence of other people and your impact towards this particular world, for example, right? On the idea of the end of the year is near, is actually, and whatever it is. But the closure towards the follower. Look, opening opposition trying to believe that, they are not looking something for rational. I don't think so, right? Because the only people can get closure is exactly the moment when they know what is the impact and what is the impact and what is the reasonings of people behind to actually to do that. You cannot get closure just because you are doing it, just because of you're doing it, right? I think that's exactly why people closure towards the follower that is actually questioning is actually always going to be better in our side of the house, right? In their side of the house, in our side of the house, people who are devoted to begin with, who blindly devoted, still going to be devoted to you anyway, regardless you're actually having this kind of science or not. But the importance is that we gain the trust of this kind of believer who is actually in gray area. It's important in our side of the house, right? Because you're going to more closure. Okay, you're doing this. You are quote unquote menjauhi zina, for example, because there are some HIV/AIDS or something like that. That's exactly why you are believe in religion, also you are believe in science. That's more makes sense, and we actually gain more follower and believer. This is why this is the purpose of the debate. Thank you, and I'm super to propose.
Thank you, the Deputy Prime Minister, for the speech. Now, to extend the case of team opening opposition, I would like to welcome the Deputy Leader of Opposition here.
Okay, please wait a minute while I'm setting up my timer. Okay, so if you want to POI me, you can just unmute yourself because I won't be looking at the chat box while I'm doing my speech. And so, okay, so I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. There are several clarifications that I'm going to make before I jump towards my extension, right? First of all, religion and science can exist independently without any of them integrating with each other. Besides, a lot of scientists also go to church because, for example, these kind of values can also exist independently. But this does not mean that, for example, just because we are part of religion, we have to integrate all of these things into us, right? They can also, for example, be scientists, etc. There are people who, for example, are still, for example, exploring about science, etc. Because we believe that both methods also have different takes on life. For example, science brings logical explanation towards the physical world about how physical matters, etc. But faith brings exclusively spiritual comfort and emotional needs. Therefore, it is not something that you can, for example, integrate into two things. And I think it is already explained very clearly from my previous speaker. But we don't think that you can buy the framing coming from the OG, right? Because when they mention to you about how OO is being disconnected from the science, we don't agree with this, because we think that we are simply trying to focus more on the inherent values that is, for example, in the holy scripture that we're teaching. It is something that that, for example, we actually champion, right? We think that this is exactly the biggest fault coming from the opening government, because they're talking as if what they really want to achieve as the opening government is they're going to integrate the people who are skeptical with, for example, the existence of God, etc. towards our religion. We don't think that in the very first place this is something that's feasible to do. It is not inside our interest to actually integrate people who don't believe in God in the very first place. I don't think that it's going to be, for example, achievable under their standards, because if people are really that, for example, don't believe in God and etc. and are skeptical, they are going to opt into something that is more science, for example, in the science way, rather than opting into something that is half science, which is, for example, integrating faith and science itself. But lastly, the moment they mentioned to you about how we don't explain the reason why, for example, we're losing followers is because we never prove the practice, the validity of our practices. We don't have the burden to prove our practices, because the essence of religion itself is that this kind of explanation are, for example, solely towards the faith. For example, the moment you have fasting, or for example, zina, etc., we already have an explanation that is also spiritual. For example, the moment you do zina, it is a bad thing because, for example, it's not something that is aligning towards the value of God, etc. This is the kind of explanation that we want to champion, right? And this is not something that, for example, can be implemented the moment you actually integrate science, because the focus are going to be so different. But I'm going to explain that further in my argumentation. But lastly, they mentioned to you about how they want to actually get this gray area people who are easily swayed by, for example, people who have science, etc. We said that this gray area people can also still be championed under our standard house. And there are also the moment, for example, these gray area people, for example, exactly the moment you actually present faith, for example, that is so closely related to our science, we don't think that this, for example, can actually champion people who are already skeptical, and therefore we don't think that it is already exclusive from their side. We think that the burden under their standard house is to prove why, for example, religion can be something that they have also the interest to actually pull everyone and into their religion itself, despite whether or not they actually believe in our holy scriptures. But first, in my speech, I will explain to you why does integrating faith and science is going to be harmful. Right? But before I'm going towards this argument, I'm going to take a POI from OG.
Yeah, we've told you that gaining more followers is important, as you will lose significant number if you are stuck in status quo. Doing that, son, in your side of the house, there's not going to be significant to gather more believer, exactly because you're not going to solidify your identity with science as the main attraction for this kind of believer.
Two responses. First of all, what we want to actually achieve at the OO is rather, for example, the prioritization that we're going to have is that to maintain our followers itself who are already inherently believe in our values, right? It is not within our interest to expand this kind of thing in the expense of us losing the current followers that we have right now. Exactly when you actually move away from this kind of stance, you're going to lose the followers that is already inside your, for example, inside your tent, etc. We think that that is more harmful. But let's go towards my first point, right? Why does integrating faith and science is necessarily something that is harmful? I think my first speaker has already mentioned to you about how it actually backlashes with our intrinsic values, about how there are some points that cannot be explained by science, both science and also faith. Right? For example, when God actually believes that, when faith actually believes that the first human is actually created by God, by, for example, Adam and Hawa, but it is not something that can be explained by science, because science don't believe the existence of Adam and Hawa, because they cannot find the bodies of this kind of people, and therefore they're going to believe in something that is they're going to invalidate the a few of the faith itself. But second of all, we think that the discussion under their Saudara house are going to be more shifted, right? Because people are going to focus more on the benefits or harms of fasting rather than, for example, the good deeds and the empowerment of individual towards the spiritual and fulfillment of having these fasting practices, etc. We think that this is exactly why this is something that is, for example, not within the interest of religion, because you're not going to focus more on your connection with God. We don't think that this is something that we want to champion at the very end of the day, because this kind of empowerment through individual and, for example, spiritual deeds is something that we want to actually maintain in our side of the house, because it is what makes our religion actually, for example, actually exclusive, right? But how does the religion with exclusive faith will actually look like under our Saudara house? We said that the religion are going to be focused on connection between humans and God. It's going to be focused on actions of human and how it's going to has a social impact on human relation. It's going to focus on ways to achieve spiritual comfort and emotional fulfillment through the system. These are going to be the appeal of religion as an exclusive benefit that cannot be accessed by science. What are the potential followers that we are going to appeal to, and therefore why is this more appealing rather than the house that for example, integrating faith and science, right? Because we are talking about communities who actually need social guidelines to actually maintain their harmony. We are talking about people whose life meaning cannot be explained by science. We are talking about people who are constantly worried about externalities that cannot be explained by science, about the future and the afterlife, etc. In a world where technological advances and science are constantly evolving, this is the only thing that makes us different from the world. Our consistency and the exclusivity of solely faith is what sets us apart and makes us indistinguishable. In the current status quo, a lot of people are going to opt into our stance to our religion to the moment we are solely faith, exactly because, for example, we are giving this instant fulfillment towards them, because the moment they actually, for example, go to church, etc., they're going to get the instant fulfillment itself. Compare this to, for example, having a faith that have to, for example, constantly being explained by science. It's not going to give you instant fulfillment, because you have to wait for the logical explanation and therefore researches in order for you to actually make this kind of things. We also want to clarify that, for example, in the current status quo, our followers are never, for example, that few towards the brink of extinction. There are, for example, let's say a Muslim in Indonesia, there's also a wide variety of people that is still believe in this Muslim, even though, for example, it has technological advances. But exactly what we want to do in the current status quo is to maintain this kind of support so that they don't actually opt out of this. This is more urgent rather than, for example, maintaining getting followers that is not within the interest of our religion if they are already skeptical. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the Deputy Leader of Opposition for the speech. That concludes the opening half of the debate. Now I would like to welcome the Member of Government to open the closing half of the debate. Here.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right. Okay. If you have POI, please unmute yourself, because I cannot read the chat. Also, apologies if my signal suddenly dropped. I'll move to my phone right away because I feel backup, but please stop pause the timer because yeah, it can happen. All right. I'll try to take one before 6. If there's no POI, I'll try it over. Starting my speech in 3, 2. So here's how I was closing. Government's gonna enter this debate. I think like how we're gonna be better than opening, because like opening debate has been on a deadlock, right? Regarding followers, whether people will join it or not. I think like we're gonna shift this debate by explaining something that is like more important, like whether like the religion's inherent value of claiming that they are the truth is gonna align with the fact that the current status quo, the science, is like disproving them that it's actually not, right? Because it's actually what I think like this is what attracting what religion actually really wants. Because like attracting followers, I think is a less priority for religion, because like inherently the fact that religion is founded when there's like people like, for example, like Abraham, Muhammad, when they are exposed, Buddha, they are exposed to something that they believe is actually the truth. That claim that they want to share, they want to spread something that they know and believe is the truth, is like why religion is like, why the truth is like aligning the truth with religion is something that is like very of the most interest of the religion, right? Because like first, I think the the problem with like debating about followers is like attraction to religion is subjective, right? Like people doesn't go to a religion exactly because like maybe what opposition says, right? Because they want to like they don't want because they don't know what it is true or not, but because people embrace religion as a support construct, right? As a moral construct. So I don't think like I think like the debate whether people's gonna join or leave religion regardless is gonna be like a total deadlock, right? Also like there's lots of like religions that are small in number but still exist, right? But even though like they don't like actively try to like gain as much followers as they can, but they still claim to be the truth, right? Because there's like that's why there's the followers. Right? I think so CG's arguments gonna have a better scale, right? Because we're not gonna cater only to religions that expand, but explain why all of these small religions also have the interest to claim that what they're spreading is like the truth, right? I think so. This is like why OO's arguments, why people believe in religion isn't that relevant in this debate, because the prerequisite of people doing good deeds for the sake of going to heaven and like the support construct that happen in them. I think like the fact that is the fact that you need to know that the religion that you are embracing is actually the truth, right? Because like people now, like people, that's why people go to atheism, because like they are like unsure, right? Whether they actually live in heaven or hell, because like people are inherently rational beings, right? So there need to be indicators of validity that shows that things that they embrace so much is actually the absolute truth or not. And this is like something that is like that is what religion should strive for, because like the status quo is like moving further and further from them, right? And thus, even if like people are who follow religion and inherently irrational and only follow them for the benefit of it, then good for them, right? Because this debate won't matter for them, right? Because whether the truth matters or not, they don't really care, right? So I think like religion should like embrace this truth, because like the fact is that religion is like the fact is that religion's claim of like being the truth is like being like super is like getting farther away from religion. So I think like our stance, I think like OO's explanation of incompatibility can only run if whether the people who see that these externalities that they cannot explain by religion and their skepticism will be dissuaded, right? When they know will be like dissuaded, right? When they know that the religion that they're following is like the truth, right? Because I think like it doesn't have any implications at all, right? If they religion that they know is like the truth, it is gonna be so much better, right? But if not, like then this kind of things still happen, right? So I think our stance on the idea of like insecure aggregation is gonna be even like much more correct. I think like we want to align the concept of like creationism with like the Big Bang theory and evolution, because those things are like seems different, right? Because like by aligning these things, that the fact that religion likes to claim that God created the earth and the humans, while like the science wants to prove that like actually it's like this explosion and like the evolution from like cells and whatnot. I think like why some religions, and I think like it is religious interest to explain that this kind of scientific matters. Okay, I'll take it.
When progressives have unlimited other options for devotion, like for example, they can focus their own ideologies still on science, atheism.
I think like the ideologies that you want to explain, like the atheism, is the fact because like the religion now is like rejecting too much, right? The fact that there's like religion that claim like actually like God created like the earth, even though like there's already like clear facts, right? There's like clear scientific methods that are provable, right? Because like this is like what science is like having the upper hand is like they show that they are provable, while religion, because of its inherent nature, is much harder to prove, right? So I think like by it is like religion's benefit if they can manage to integrate the fact by saying like maybe like God created the earth through the Big Bang evolution, Big Bang theory, right? That God uses this physics phenomena to like create the earth, right? And this still aligns, right? Because this is like what I think like this is the alignment that the religion really wants, because like this is like what religion all claims to be, right? That they are all exclusive and true, and they constantly try to prove it. Thus, I think like it's an ideal metric of religion, right? To show that the things that they claim, I think like the everything that they want to say is like is true, right? Like whether like God created the earth or not. So I think like the problem with this is that science has managed to prove these things scientifically, right? So I think like this is the gap that exists, and this is gonna be hard because like when the people who actually like embrace the religion, especially like when the religious leaders or like the followers, when they're confronted with the scientific facts, what happens now is denial, right? The fact that they are denial is like it makes them like it is what like makes the questioning of the validity of the religion and its inherent truth becoming like more and more shaky, right? And especially that even if you say religious people are like living in an echo chamber, I think like sure it is, but the fact that they're becoming more and more minority, meaning it refers in fact I think that's gonna be more radicalized, or the fact is that they're gonna like simply like succumb to the majority, right? Because I feel like it's not easier to be like a minority. That's like being like that is like being, what's the name? Yeah, being like discriminated. I don't know if it's not discriminated, but like yeah, being like marginalized in like the community, right? That I think like even if they live in a echo chamber, I think like this religion is gonna be so much. It's not gonna be in the interest of them because it shows that this religion is like not in alignment with the truths of the truths of like what exists in the real in what's going on, right? And in a comparative, like in the counterfactual, I think it's gonna be like easier, right, for the religion to actually claim that whatever they're teaching is like true, right? Because like I think like all religion wants to be like the fact that what they're practicing is like actually like where the teaching go to heaven or there's like hell, and like all the things that they want the followers to like do, like being like following the moral guidelines, needs to write on the precedence that what they're teaching is true, right? So this is like why proud to propose.
Thank you, the member of government, for this speech. And now I would like to welcome the member of opposition to open the case of CO. Hear her.
Test, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Setting up my stopwatch. I'm gonna start my speech in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. First, let's engage to the government idea about they want to make religion more progressive and more moderate. Notice, ladies and gentlemen, right, that giving reasons to practices of religious, for example, like solat or harms of free sex in current status quo already exists, right? It is not right. This is not about like significantly integrated with science, right? Significantly means that you are open to discussion with scientists, willing to invest in that, and actually open yourself to a lot of possibilities in that, right? So I question the exclusivity of their case. But B, even if you want to be more progressive, you are not exactly integrating it with science in current status quo, right? You can integrate it in a general norm of morality of the society. For example, values like justice, equality that is universally accepted, right? Right now, there are a lot of folk scientists and folk saints that exist. Like that's why you have alternative religion, for example, because people feel the sense of dissatisfaction from certain idea, so they make alternative religion, alternative channel of the religion, right? For example, there are already like a lot of people who wants to make it more moderate level, right? For example, there is already like normalizing LGBT in Catholicism, for example, and this is their way of like moderating it, but not exactly integrated with science, right? Under our sort of the house, we can always tweak it and always like preach that this is religious interpretation that we have. We can always tweak like religious ayat, for example, so that it fulfills our interest, right? But even if under our side of the house, under their side, they say that, oh, we will sway people by saying that, oh, reducing the number of rakaat is going to lead, is actually good because it is more human, for example, right? Under our side, this still can exist, but the difference is the approach that we take is that we will frame it in a way that, oh, God is so merciful, right? God gives us less rakat because God loves us and God didn't want us to overly tired, right? These are the sense of comfort that people need, and these are the prerequisites of people entering religion, right? They are the only people who wants to gain, under their side, the one who enter your side is only the one who want to gain benefit, right? They will question, well, if Salat brings me healthy, why am I have to enter religion instead of going to the gym, for example, right? Because their calculation is completely based on utility, not in the morality, and necessarily want to invest their emotion to trust God and glorify God, right? So that's why under our side of the house, it's better, right? But secondly, let's talk about why under their side, they will lose the sense of value in religion and lead to less follower, right? Notice that there is a lot of religious teaching that is clashing with science, ladies and gentlemen, right? We think that OO only brought this in a vague thing, like, for example, karma and whatnot, right? Notice that there is an explicit clashing in here. For example, stories like membelah lautan, for example, in Islam, things like splitting moon, for example, or Jesus' resurrection, right? These are not something that the religious leaders use to glorify their religion, right? Or B, God is omnipotent, for example, and it's beyond science, right? Irrespective of how science exists, God is omnipotent, right? These are something that science will never approve under your side of the house, right? This is very harmful under their side because this story is crucial for us to gain follower, right? Notice that religion doesn't have to make sense to begin with, ladies and gentlemen, right? People oftentimes already struggling in life, they want to believe on external force to increase their happiness, because people experience so much hurdle in this life, right? What they need is a sense of hope beyond externalities, right? Where people are praying and having an all-powerful source that will help them in the future or promise them heaven after life, right? These are something that will never be proven under their side of the house, right? This is important, ladies and gentlemen, because this what makes people has more enter religion, right? These are these are how people are willing to follow your religion, ladies and gentlemen, right? But the moment you tell them that those stories of all-powerful source is not there, they will be self-questioning and watch their source of hope crumbles down and losing their moral compass, right? They will question other things that exist in their life. They will stuck in this cruel world, like, oh my God, I'm born poor, and there is no afterlife. What am I supposed to do, right? But the harms of this is, ladies and gentlemen, that people will likely to justify bad deeds under their side of the house because they feel like, oh, life is so unfair. There is no afterlife. I just do crime under our side of the house, right? There is no morality, right? What am I even doing here, right? It's better to invest on making these people believe in your religion, ladies and gentlemen, and have more morality rather than investing on science that will debunk your idea, ladies and gentlemen, right? But see, notice that not all followers seek for religious in a philosophical matter, right? The majority of people is only not seeking for the truth, right? They only try to find the sense of value in religion, right? As long as we have God to lean on when we are struggling, it's okay, right? But see, under the house, notice that even worse, they will feel betrayed by your religion, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my God, you lied to me. What is this all for, ladies and gentlemen? I go Hajj 5 times. I salat 5 times a day, all for nothing, right? They will feel the sense of betrayal, ladies and gentlemen. But secondly, let's talk about the interactions of religious and scientists under their side of the house. This is what OO never explains, right? The moment you show openness to science, scientists will debunk your value, right? They will constantly do research to debunk and prove you wrong every time, right? Because scientists never stop until they prove everything, right? The culture of shaming will exist under their side of the house, and they will openly and because you give them airtime, this is going to be bad, ladies and gentlemen, because there will always be like media attention to them comparatively to under our side of the house, right? But B, notice that there is a lot of religious skeptics in current status quo that we utilize this scientific narrative, right? You invite this like for example religious skeptics in YouTube that have like audience in YouTube, for example, to shame your religion, ladies and gentlemen, for example, by using the credibility of the scientific institution, right? The problem is their viewer is gray area people and they're confused, ladies and gentlemen, right? And the moment you give them airtime, they will have like more credibility to shame us, right? But see, notice that even you want to lean on science under their side of the house, science is bad because there is diverse opinion and it is constantly evolving, right? I.e., back then we believe that the Earth is the center of the universe, but later on we debunk it later on, right? What if later on they say that solar is less productive compared to go to the gym? It will lead to a lot of confusion, ladies and gentlemen, right? But next, scientific believers is all powerful in current status quo. They are backed by NGO. They will make they will make shaming us under our side of the house, right? But even if they are powerful, notice that science is not that popular, right? Even politicians constantly question science too, whether or not climate change exists and etc., right? Or like how it questions me like how much people that we will get under your side, right? But notice that we will take the trade-off in here, right? This is what OO never brought in this debate, right? Even if we get less follower, it's okay under 3 reasons. Notice that the one that they want to capture under their side of the house is truth seeker. They want to seek progressive, right? Notice that this progressive has millions of other alternative of ideology. Even if you integrate it with science, they'd rather be agnostic, for example, or prefer other ideology because they are not interested in your religion because it looks like it's a hypocrite and it's not consistent. They will not enter it, ladies and gentlemen. But B, guess what, right? Follower who enters religious via science, which is a truth seeker, the moment they find less validity in your religion due to the nature of science that is constantly evolving by time, right? The moment they find less validity in your religion, they will opt out and not gonna be a sustainable follower, right? But under our side of the house, at least we protect our loyal and most vulnerable follower because we can always protect our follower from getting into swayed by scientists, ladies and gentlemen, right? Because we loyal follower is better because they are the one who gives donation to us. They are the one who like further strengthen our humanitarian humanitarian action and whatsoever. I'm so proud to oppose.
Thank you, the member of opposition, for the speech. Now, to close the entire case of team government, I would like to welcome the government whip here.
All right. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. If it's okay, I'm gonna keep my camera off because my internet is a bit shaky today. I don't know why. So yeah, I hope that's okay. Yeah, POI
Yeah.
preference through unmuting yourselves, no gender pronoun, no preferred gender pronouns. Call me whatever, it's okay. All right, let me pull up my timer real quick. Cool. All right then, I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So we believe that the only reason that many religions still exist today is because religion is very adaptive. Methods of teaching in religion adapts itself to what is more acceptable to most people of its time, right? And under the current day and age, we need to adapt the teachings of religion with science. Religion's main interest is to spread the words of God and ensure that people that it is the absolute truth. Science. So under our world, we provide you science as a way to prove the teachings of God. So now I'm going to explain to you the functions, the impact, and the weighing in of our substantives and our arguments, right? So first of all, I think there are a few rebuttals, but I don't think that when CO tried to bring the case of pragmatism, like trying to gain more followers in order to gain more followers because they provide the donations and whatever and so on and so forth. We believe that it is not a very important and exclusive case. However, if they do want to debate about that, I will show you why it is actually still better under our side. But now moving on to the rebuttals, right? They say that science is bad because it is a diverse opinion, right? Well, we believe that religion doesn't have to simply accept irrational scientific statements like going to gym is healthier than salat, for example. But what it needs is to actually align important questionable clashes, like the idea of creation. That's the idea of us integrating science within religion. And the second point of rebuttal is that they say that it'll in the case of wanting to protect our most loyal and vulnerable follower, I think we already explained why the loyal followers won't leave anyways at the end of the day, and it's actually much better under our side, as I would like to explain to you later in my substantives. Now I'm going to engage holistically to all of the benches, right? Comparing ourselves to OG, where they want to argue to you the from the stance of religion and their interest, I think we're better in this because they try to argue to you in the pragmatic sense, where it's about the followers and how it is important for them to keep and gain more followers. However, we believe that religion exists higher than the realm of pragmatism. We believe that there are more important causes to be served in comparison to pragmatism, and we serve to you today in this debate. And comparing ourselves to OO, and how they want to maintain the identity of religion. Identity is still going to be maintained under our side of the house, and because a few reasons: alignment of science and religion, right? That's what we're trying to achieve. So that it's actually something that supports one another and not something that constantly tries to disprove each other. At the very least, with aligning science and religion, you may say that some scientists are at the end of the day are still going to disprove science, still going to disprove religion, right? But at the very least, religion, at least religious people are not going to try disproving science and create another conflict, right? So I think I will debate to you that why identity of religion is still going to exist under our case. No, thank you. Later on. So, and then comparing ourselves to CO, well, yeah, it's integrated to my rebuttal, and we'll prove to you why we're actually better, right? And I'm going to prove to you in a way that we're going to compare both roles, right? Our stance is going to be less on followers, but aligning the claim of religion as absolute truth to science that is constantly proving that they're the truth, right? Let's compare both worlds then. Under their world, let's take their best case then. Under their best case, religion succeed in giving people sense of comfort, right? But that's what they're trying to achieve. But later down the line, due to the advancement of people's way in thinking, becoming more progressive and so on and so forth, what will happen to these people who found comfort? Under their world, the basis of that comfort is way too vague and shaky for a person to actually devote themselves to. However, under our side, we achieve both. We create a good and strong basis of believability, and we will still provide comfort, like what my MG said. But even in our worst case, where comfort is not achieved at the end of the day, we at the very least, we already give them a good basis of faith. They have a good knowing that their God is real and believable. I will give you a few reasons. I will give you the explanation. Why is it believable then? When science had only been able to discover a fact within the modern world with the modern technology that they have, but their God is able to put said facts in the holy book thousands and thousands of years before said discovery, then these believers, who even if they don't find the comfort, have a good strong basis to actually believe of their God's existence, their God's existence in a way that, okay, they believe that their God's miracle is real. There is no way people of the olden age actually know the fact without actually modern technology, right? And therefore, such words can only come from the God, and therefore proving that God exists. That's what we're trying to debate here. But I think both both opposition benches tries to disregard that in a whole. So now, so yeah, we've proven to you why it's actually under their best case, it's not even ideal for the future of said religion. So yeah, it provides them a shaky basis of their believability, and therefore we question the longevity of said religion, because the main interest of religion should be providing the masses about the words of God, right? So now I'm going to conclude our case, right? Now I will. Now, what have we brought to you in this debate? We brought to you the most sensible stance and the most relevant stance in context of religion and the main interest of religion in spreading the words of God. And we've proven to you why in comparing the both worlds, we're actually still far better compared to the opposition, right? So I think the most important issue that we should be talking about here is actually the main burden of proof of all the teams is which team can actually provide a world where actually religion is more is ensured in longevity wise, and the words of God is actually ensured in actually still being taught across time and even in the far future. And we've proven to you today why in this debate we provide to you assurance that as a religion, the words of God will still be secured in the future, and people have a good, strong basis of believability, and that's why we should win. Thank you.
Thank you, the government whip, for the speech. Now, to close the entire debate, I would like to welcome the opposition whip. Here.
If you want to POI, just unmute, and I cannot turn on my camera because of connection issues. Starting, okay, wait, setting my timer. Starting in 3, 2, 1. OG cannot win this debate because even their definition of how they're going to integrate is fake. What kind of evidence they will use is fake. OO cannot win because OO only talks about how science inherently cannot be integrated, but never contextualize why the followers that they have is significantly important. We're the one that's going to fill the gap. CG cannot win because number one, their analysis is the same as OG, but secondly, even evidence of absolute truth in the third house is still fake, right? I'm going to talk about two things in my speech. Number one, I'm going to talk about I'm going to compare followers and believers that exist in both benches. Number two, I'm going to talk about why we are better than all, right? Onto the followers, right? Let's kick OG and CG from this debate because the prerequisite of them to have followers hinges upon number one, the popularity of science, like we told you. Number two, the willingness of these progressives to be opt-in and to be contributive, right? We told you that in the third house, even science are not that popular. Even lots of conservative politicians have now question the legitimacy of science. Even lots of people in the ground are not cognizant enough on the importance of science. That's why lots of people don't care about the environment. Even anti-vaxxers exist, even anti-climate change. Right? The ability of people to understand science is not that accessible because most likely the one that comprehends science are the only people who can go to like fancy med school and science school and whatnot, right? Why this is important, right? Because we think that what makes religion is important, and Saksi because religions and things that are uncertain and cannot be answered by science, right? Also, people seek for internal clarity, internal salvation, right? Because when you refer to reality, that's not going to be interesting because you already know what is reality. In our side, it's much here because we give people see that regardless of how you suffer, but if you do good deeds and you pray to God, you'll do just fine. But even if you can nullify science, right, it's worse on your side because you're just going to do, you're just going to keep on initiating the simple discussion, and because science takes a long time for it to find the answer, because you have to do research and whatnot, and even then, religious communities have to invest a lot of money to develop the science to improve the teaching. For example, like the resurrection of Jesus. Of course, in your side, when you want to prove this scientifically, it's going to take a lot of time to prove how Jesus can be scientifically resurrect, or for example, the story of Kurban, your side, how you can prove that it's scientifically feasible for Nabi Ismail to be replaced by God, by the goat, right? Meanwhile, in our side of the house, we can just simply say that God works in mysterious ways, and because we give them assurance, they will just accept it and go on with their lives. Why is it likely? Because in the inherent trait of people opting into religion, like Member told you, because they want to do like tawakal and submit, leave it the rest to God. And to begin with, we already give them disclaimer that we don't have the need to prove science. Therefore, they won't be questioning that much, right? But even if in their side of the house, these progressives might be opting into religion, this is something that's never been contextualized by O, right? Their contribution will not be just sufficient because you only want to get medical benefits, which means selfish followers that want it for themselves for religious agendas won't do that much, right? Exactly, because they are pro-science. Most likely, they are reluctant to donate to religious agenda like the construction of religious buildings and temples because they believe that, oh, the construction will just ruin the environment. Oh, it's going to take a lot of areas that could be reserved for trees and whatnot and to preserve the environment. For example, because the concept of tawakal and submitting yourself into God and leave it trust to God is something that obviously not belong in science, meaning they won't opt into that, meaning they will just question the legitimacy of tawakal. Or for example, kiamat, most likely in Gulf, they will just refer kiamat to climate change, and most likely what they will do is just to preserve the environment as opposed to like dedicating the remainder of your lives to God, right? This is the exclusivity what we have in our side of the house, right? But also, we think it's just going to be stagnant in government if they want to appease the progressive people, because like we told you in our POI, because most likely progressive people will have less incentive to join religion just because religion take themselves to science, because most likely they will just focus on their own ideologies. They just focus on science, atheism, liberal ideologies, and whatnot, right? Therefore, we proven to you, number one, less likely for them to join just because you're in science. But number two, even if they join, the development of they will not be contributive towards the development of religion. But before that, I'll take OG.
Yeah, people who don't believe in science, basically they are devoted believer of religion, which going to be accessed regardless. The problem is that how you are going to appeal to people who is glorifying the science.
Okay, in your side of the house, in your side of the house, I'm going to explain you later why in your side of the house that kind of people will leave your religion. But even then, we already proved to you that even you cannot engage with the people that glorifies science just because even if you glorify science, they doesn't mean they want to opt into your religion. Like what I told you before you PR, right? But why then, comparatively, in our side house, the followers that we get, it's much more important. Number one, in our side, the ones that opt in is the ones that truly want to devote themselves to God. These are the ones that willing to go out of their way to contribute significantly on your community. For example, by giving lots of donations, sacrificing their time and whatnot by praying and go to church every day. They are the ones that willing to go out of the way to actively spread their religious teachings. Even the fact that they know the consequences of their religious teachings, they might be ridiculed by their people, but the fact that they're willing to do it, meaning that it proves significant devotion to your religion, is much more comparatively beneficial in our side house. But why in our side house OG and CG will trade it off? My member told you, right, on how they will feel betrayed after centuries believing in that. They will be disappointed because you basically told them all the preachers that they have subscribed to is wrong, and all the years of dedication and devotion you have done is false, because you replace it with new teachings, which is the result of the integration, right? Therefore, it's likely for you to trade off these kinds of followers because they will feel disappointed, they will feel betrayed, right? Because that's why in our side of the house, we prove to you why it's significantly important for us to latching on to this kinds of followers, right? Let's engage to CG, right? CG talks about religious community who hop into this will be discriminated by the majority for believing in denial, right? Two responses to this. We don't understand to what extent the discrimination exists. Is it to the extent that they will be discriminated to the extent their basic necessities will be fulfilled? You don't think so? Because state still has a responsibility to cater them, and even states, regions still have some sort of beginning power. But number two, even if this discrimination is about judgment and criticism, we think that's okay, because most likely these religious members will not care anyway, because what they care is their relationship to God and their devotion of God. They do not care for the validation of other people that they don't deem important, important to them, right? Secondly, why we are better than O? Because we are the ones that bite the bullet. Even if OG and CG have new followers, it's going to be less productive anyway, because they just talk about how it's impossible to integrate science and religion. But number two, we are the ones that crystallize the importance of faithfulness of religion, and how even if progressives rely on the merciful of Allah narrative, on how Jesus is loving and forgiving, and this what motivates people to opt into this religion, right? What are the conclusion and why what are the conclusion in this debate? We have proven to you why our house, the followers that we'll get is much more important, and we already proven to you, number one, it's possible in OG to do this, but number two, OG and CG to do this, but number two, we've proven to you why in the house, the development of religion is much better in our side. I was very proud to oppose.
Okay, thank you guys so much for the debate. It was a very interesting debate. So with that being said, I guess judges will need time